Chapter 9, Job. Long Yuihang couldn't understand Shang Jianiao's answer, so he couldn't be bothered. The two of them casually chatted as they headed to the supplies allocation market together. When the staff cafeteria opened, they each spent 8 contribution points on a hard-boiled egg, 2 mixed-grain buns, and a plate of pickled vegetables. After breakfast, Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang brought their lunch boxes into the rec center. They sat in a corner of the hall and waited for the release of the job allocation results. The rec center was empty at that moment, apart from the employees working there, who were busy scrubbing, cleaning, and moving objects around under Chen Xianyu's supervision. The elders who were training and chatting in the morning were no longer around. They were either sending the young ones to school or heading directly to their jobs. The company stipulated that those who were 60 years old could be transferred to a more relaxed position or have their workload halved. Only when they were 75 years old did they not need to work. They could then receive monthly pensions based on their employee rank. However, not many retired employees could come to the rec center at their leisure when they reached the age of 75. As genetic enhancement wasn't widespread for the earlier generations, few people could live to the age of 75 without sufficient resources and nutrition. Long Yuihang took a deep breath and tried to make conversation. "I met the daughter of my mother's colleague yesterday. She just turned 18. She works at the radio station under the entertainment department. She's about 1.7 meters tall and is very pretty. Do you think it's possible for her to like me? I'm only 1.75 meters tall after genetic enhancement. My looks are average and my grades are only average. I wasn't earmarked by any department." Shang Jianiao's right eyebrow twitched slightly. "What's her name?" "Feng Yunying. Heh, she doesn't know Hu Yi. They aren't in the same team." Long Yuihang thought that Shang Jianiao wanted to ask about Hu Yi's situation. After all, many of the company's employees were loyal listeners of this broadcaster. Shang Jianiao didn't appear disappointed and continued to ask, "Which floor and zone does she live in? What's her unit number?" "Why are you asking this?" Long Yuihang was shocked and confused. Shang Jianiao glanced at him. "I'll go ask her if it's possible that she likes you." No matter how inexperienced Long Yuihang was, he knew that this would only serve to mess things up. "Haha, stop joking." He didn't dare continue the topic. "What department do you wish to enter?" "Security department," Shang Jianiao replied without hesitation. Long Yuihang almost lost control of his voice. "Are you crazy? That's very dangerous. Don't think that having a meal allowance is a good thing. Haha, you're joking again." The security department was the least safe amongst all the departments in the company. The annual staff mortality rate was several times higher than the other departments combined. This was because they were responsible for many expeditions. Their duties involved escorting large amounts of supplies through the wilderness, fighting with people or monsters who had invaded their sphere of influence, guarding the outposts other than the underground building, venturing deep into the wilderness to search for old-world ruins, and protecting the scientific team to complete their corresponding projects. However, their duties weren't limited to just these things. This often resulted in security department employees having to face pollution, disease, monsters, heartless disease, and bullets. Some were injured, infected, had abnormalities, or even died. It was inevitable. While Long Yuihang was shocked by Shang Jianiao's answer, Meng Zia and the others entered the rec center one after another. They then sat down in different areas according to their familiarity with the area. Yang Zhenyuan had a good relationship with Shang Jianiao and Long Yuihang. They lived on the same floor, had gotten into the same university, and also majored in the same field. Therefore, he walked towards the two of them after looking around. Why do you look so deflated? Did you not eat breakfast?" Long Yuihang asked with concern as he saw Yang Zhenyuan walk over. Yang Zhenyuan's face turned red. "I've eaten. I'm just a little tired." "Why are you tired?" Long Yuihang was confused. Yang Zhenyuan didn't know how to explain. He turned to Shang Jianyao and sighed. "I never knew marriage is such a tiring thing. However, it's still pretty good. You guys have to find a partner as soon as possible." As he spoke, he unconsciously revealed a smile. Long Yuihang felt that he understood what he was getting at and didn't ask any further. He continued the topic from before. "Yang Zhenyuan, Shang Jianyao just joked about how he wants to join the security department." Yang Zhenyuan thought about it seriously. "If I can restrict myself to serving internally, I would like to work there too. The treatment is really good." Security department employees' salary was no different from that of other departments' employees. They all followed the company's rules. However, since they required high-intensity training, they could eat meat every day. On training days and duty days, they would eat in the security department's exclusive canteen. The price of the food was low and the servings were plentiful. Usually, there would be meal allowances. This was fatally attractive to many employees. Isn't that obvious? If one can really restrict themselves to serve internally, everyone will want to work there. "Well, except management and those researchers," said Long Yuihang disdainfully. "Unfortunately, the security department's internal and external posts are done on rotation unless one becomes Big Boss's personal guard, part of an operation team directly under management, or an important project security detail." Shang Jianyao, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "I want a field agent position." Long Yuihang waved his hand in front of Shang Jianyao. "Is there really something wrong with your brain? Don't you know how dangerous it is outside?" There were many employees in the security department, so everyone knew someone from it to some extent. They knew the Ashlands situation, so they knew that there was more chaos than order outside. The company's interior was comparatively peaceful and orderly. Its capability of providing basic supplies made it like heaven. It was precisely because of this that not many people really wanted to be part of the department. Even though the security department had the corresponding allowances for field agents and the choice to bring items from the Ashlands back home without them handing over or destroying them. In order to encourage everyone to join the security department, the board of directors was very generous with the promotion of the corresponding staff. Many people, in their ordinary jobs, might only reach D3 their entire lives, unable to become senior employees. However, the staff of the security department could reach D4 in a year or even 6 months. At the same time, all those who retired from the security department and transferred into normal positions would be promoted by one rank. Yang Zhenyuan could not understand Shang Jianyao, but he did not retort and only pointed out some facts. Security department employees are basically selected from married people with children. It's very rare to find someone who was just matched or yet to be married. "That's right." Long Yuihang smiled and nodded. He then looked at Shang Jianyao and said, "Why do you want to be a field agent?" "To save all of humanity," said Shang Jianyao without changing his expression. Long Yuihang and Yang Zhenyuan choked on their own saliva at the same time. At that moment, two people in black uniforms came in from outside and handed a sealed paper envelope to Chen Jianyao, the rec center's pick. Long Yuihang, Yang Zhenyuan, and Meng Zia stood up at the same time and held their breaths. The paper envelope contained the job allocation results. Compared to the central marriage assignment's need for a public announcement, the job allocation results were given, in the form of a letter, to the corresponding person because of confidentiality clauses. Nobody else knew of the results during the entire process. After confirming that the paper envelope wasn't damaged, the two board staff signed and handed over the results. They then retreated to Chen Jianyu's side to supervise the distribution process. "That was fast. It seems like we are the first batch. I wonder what kind of job I'll get." Long Yuihang couldn't help but speak in his nervousness. Shang Jianyao glanced at him and said, "First, assume that you've entered the security department. That way, no matter what the outcome is, it won't be worse." That makes sense. Long Yuihang had no other choice but to follow Shang Jianyao suggestion. After Chen Xianyu showed the paper envelope to everyone, he unsealed it and took out a stack of envelopes. Then he read the name on each letter. Zhang Xiaoman. A girl went up, took the letter, and quickly walked to the side to open the envelope. Yang Zhenyuan. There. Meng Zia. There. Long Yuihang. There. Shang Jianyao. There. The names were read out one by one. One by one, people walked up and received the envelope that would decide their fate. They didn't try hiding their results from others. Instead, they directly opened the envelope in the rec center and took out the letter inside. Long Yuihang stood not far away from Chen Xianyu. His hands trembled as he unfolded the paper. Long Yuihang, electronic card number 2,511,013,768. Please report to room 14 on the 647th floor before noon. 647th floor. Long Yuihang's mind buzzed, and the letter in his hand fell to the ground. He quickly picked it up again and read it a few more times, hoping that he had read it wrongly. Unfortunately, he hadn't. I'm doomed," he muttered to himself, his face ashen. This underground building had a total of 650 floors. The 5 floors closest to the surface came under the security department. Therefore, reporting to the 647th floor meant joining the security department. Slap. Shang Jianyao patted Long Yuihang's shoulder. Long Yuihang slowly turned around, his eyes dull. I'm doomed. With a bright smile, Shang Jianyao said, "I've been assigned to the security department." Huh? Long Yuihang snapped out of his nightmare and grabbed Shang Jianyao's letter. He quickly scanned it and read the contents. Shang Jianyao. Electronic card number 2,509,083,626. Please report to room 14 on the 647th floor before noon. We will be in the same place. Long Yuihang calmed down a little. Shang Jianyao smiled and replied, "Looks like it." Why are we so unlucky? Long Yuihang was no longer disappointed and depressed after learning that he had company. Shang Jianyao tilted his head and said, "I applied for it." Long Yuihang was speechless. At this moment, Meng Zia, Yang Zhenyuan, Zhang Xiaoman, and the others all saw their assignments. Some were excited, some were happy, some felt down, and some were sad. However, none of them reacted as strongly as Long Yuihang. "Where are you assigned to?" "I'm going to the Research Institute on the 36th floor." Yang Zhenyuan came over with his letter. With a beaming smile, Shang Jianyao replied, "Security Department." In the blink of an eye, the rec center's hall became extremely quiet. The sad and depressed people were first surprised before they felt that their assignment wasn't too bad. Upon seeing this, Long Yuihang did not want to stay any longer. He pulled Shang Jianyao aside and spoke in a low voice. "Let's head over to report. Sai, that's all we can do now." This result could not be resisted, unless he wanted his entire family to be banished from the company. Even if one had some connections that could soothe things over with relations, they had to report first before attempting to make a transfer. However, those with such connections would have long taken the earmarked route. Shang Jianyao waved at Yang Zhenyuan, took his lunch box, and walked to the other side of Zone C with Long Yuihang. There was an elevator that led to the top 5 floors. Long Yuihang followed Shang Jianyao in silence for a while. Suddenly, he pursed his lips and softly said, "At least I can see the real sky." Long Yuihang imagined that Shang Jianyao would say a few words to comfort him, but to his surprise, he didn't say anything. Instead, Shang Jianyao walked straight ahead as if he didn't hear him. Long Yuihang opened his mouth, wanting to repeat himself, but he didn't manage to say anything in the end. Instead, he sighed silently. After walking in silence for a while, they arrived at the fourth elevator area in a corner of Zone C. As they waited for the elevator to arrive, Long Yuihang found time passing very slowly. Every second was torturous. It was suffocating. Finally, the doors to the elevator on the left opened. After entering, Shang Jianyao swiped his electronic card and pressed the 647 button. The door closed, and the elevator started to move up. As he watched the numbers change, Shang Jianyao suddenly spoke in a deep voice. Everyone has their own calling. Long Yuihang was stunned for 2 seconds before he smiled bitterly. I just want to stay in the company, find a good wife, have 2 cute children, a boy and a girl, and strive to allow them to have meat 3 times a week. His voice gradually softened, as if he had already come to the realization that such a goal could not be accomplished. Shang Jianyao didn't say anything else. Long Yuihang didn't know what to say either. The two of them kept their mouths shut and stood in their spots. Time in the elevator seemed to come to a standstill. After an unknown period of time, the elevator stopped at the 647th floor. As Long Yuihang walked out, he lowered his head and asked, Shang Jianyao, a penny for your thoughts. I was thinking about how good it is for me to have a younger brother and sister. I was just in a daze. Shang Jianyao stared ahead. You sure have a good attitude. Long Yuihang couldn't help but sigh. After all, I applied for the position myself. Shang Jianyao looked to the right and checked the door number. Long Yuihang was speechless and started searching for room 14. Unlike the 495th floor, the 647th floor was not divided into several streets. The rooms also weren't 2 to 3 meters apart. This place was centered around the training grounds. Several large rooms surrounded the training grounds. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang soon arrived outside room 14. There was no nameplate on the door, so the two of them had no way of guessing which security department team it came under. Long Yuihang opened his mouth and took a deep breath in a bid to adjust his mindset and face his fate. At this moment, Shang Jianyao did not hesitate at all. He bent his finger and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. This sound was a little sudden, interrupting Long Yuihang's deep breathing. He was just about to complain when a slightly hoarse female voice sounded from inside. Please come in. Shang Jianyao turned the handle and pushed open the door. Long Yuihang immediately glanced inside, his gaze sweeping across the room. This room was at least 3 times larger than his home. At the very end were a desk, painted brown and red, and 2 large bookshelves. On the left side of the wall were 3 tables. They were black in color and looked rather old. The middle and the right section played the role of a living room. There was a battered cloth sofa set, a coffee table, 4 recliners, 2 benches, and 4 low stools. At this moment, a woman stood up from the sofa and looked towards the door. She was in her 20s and nearly 1.8 meters tall. Her body's ratio, head, body, and legs, were very proportionate. Her skin had a malt color, and her black hair was tied into a ponytail behind her head. Unlike the girls commonly seen in the residential zone, she wore a uniform that signified her employment to the safety department. It was gray with a certain camouflage pattern, making her look valiant. Her facial features were also very suitable for this kind of attire. Her eyebrows were thick, her eyes were large, and she looked very heroic. Are you guys the new team members? The woman smiled brightly, but her voice sounded a little loud. Yes, yes. Long Yuihang felt a little awkward when he saw the extraordinary beauty. The woman frowned slightly and said, louder. An indescribable clarity was in her voice, and it was clear that she was not the person who had said, please come in. Long Yuihang was startled, thinking that he had somehow offended his superior. Shang Jianyao stepped forward and shouted, "Yes!" His voice echoed in the room and reached the corridor. The woman smiled again and pointed at her ear. "There's no need to be so loud. I'm just hard of hearing, not deaf." Long Yuihang followed her finger and saw a silver metallic object in her ear. "A cochlear implant," the woman said frankly. She immediately wiped away her smile and spoke in a voice that was much louder than an ordinary person's. "Let me introduce myself. I'm your team leader, Jiang Bamian. Despite calling myself a team leader, I'm not yet a D7. I'm presently only a D6. "Yes, team leader," Long Yuihang replied loudly. "Greetings, team leader." Shang Jianyao seemed very happy. Jiang Bamian pointed at the sofa. "She's the other member, Bai Chen." Bai Chen was only about 1.6 meters tall, although she also wore a gray camouflage uniform. She was clearly much more petite than Jiang Bamian. She had a gray, old-fashioned scarf wrapped around her neck. Her black hair went just past her ears, and her facial features were still considered exquisite. Her skin was rather rough, as though the elements had hardened her. Unlike Jiang Bamian's dark brown eyes, her eyes were closer to yellowish-brown. "Hello," Bai Chen greeted them in a slightly hoarse voice. "Hello," Long Yuihang was still a little reserved. "Hello," Shang Jianiao's voice remained very loud. Jiang Bamian pointed at the coffee table and loudly said, "Take a seat." "Ah yes, introduce yourself first." "Shang Jianyao." Jiang Bamian had just finished speaking when Shang Jianyao shouted out his name. Then, he casually closed the door before walking over to sit on a chair with his lunchbox in hand. "I'm Long Yuihang. My father's surname is Long, and my mother's name has the word Hong in it." Long Yuihang subconsciously explained the origin of his name. He then sat on the chair next to Shang Jianyao. Jiang Bamian sat down and looked around before saying with a smile, "Since everyone is here, let me briefly explain our team's situation." "Everyone is here," Long Yuihang blurted out. "There are only 4 of us. A security department team should have at least 20 people, right?" Jiang Bamian was stunned. "What did you say?" "He said there are too few people." Shang Jianyao helped translate. Jiang Bamian's brows relaxed as she smiled. "We're not a combat unit." "Not a combat unit." Long Yuihang was delighted. Jiang Bamian glanced at Shang Jianyao and said, "Our team's full name is the Investigation Unit for the Cause of the Old World's Destruction. It's also known as the Old Task Force. However, we aren't the only Old Task Force. Be it the Security Department or the Board, there are other Old Task Forces. They just aren't aware of each other's exact situation. Remember, this is key. It's a confidential matter. There's no need to worry about having investigations repeated. Although we don't know what other old task forces there are and their progress, the higher-ups will share the latest and most valuable clues with us." At this point, Jiang Bamian paused, and her expression turned serious. Compared to an ordinary combat unit, the investigation unit for the cause of the old world's destruction might face greater danger. Why are there so many small teams that take on the same mission? It's because there was only one old task force in the past with many members. Then, during an investigation, they disappeared completely. No one returned. The losses were tragic and difficult to make up for. Long Yuihang's face turned pale. "It's so dangerous." "What did you say?" Jiang Bamian only saw Long Yuihang's mouth moving and barely heard anything. Long Yuihang subconsciously looked at Shang Jianyao and saw that his expression was serious. Shang Jianyao remained silent and had no intention of translating for him. Long Yuihang took a deep breath and shouted, "It's so dangerous." After yelling like that, he realized that his emotions had actually eased a lot. Jiang Bamian nodded. An old task force might venture deep into the wilderness to investigate some city ruins, or they might head to other factions' territories to search for clues. We might face all kinds of situations and encounter all kinds of enemies. You could say that even senior employees in the security department aren't too willing to join the old task force. Long Yuihang's face turned even paler. Why are we so unlucky? After muttering to himself, he roared, Why are we so unlucky? Jiang Bamian looked around in confusion. I'm not unlucky. I wasn't assigned here. Our old task force was actually formed because of my application. She smiled and added, I've always believed we need to figure out the cause of the old world's destruction. It's the only way we can avoid making the same mistake. It's the only way we can find the root cause of the heartless disease and shake off this fear for all humans. And you've all heard the rumors that the gateway to the new world lies in the depths of a city ruins, somewhere above the Ashlands. If we never explore it, we'll never be able to enter the new world. We'll always be accompanied by famine, infection, mutation, and monsters. This is my dream, so I took the initiative to apply to the security department's higher-ups, hoping to establish a new old task force. Heh heh. I also like to dig up history from city ruins. I like to observe other factions' social situation and interact with people and things in different states. Bai Chen, who was quietly sitting on the sofa, suddenly said, I've heard someone mention you. He says you're a sociologist and his goddess. Jiang Bamian chuckled. Ah, what did you say? I didn't hear the last thing you said. Forget it, forget it. Tell me about yourself. Bai Chen looked at Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang and said with a slightly hoarse voice, I volunteered. You may be able to tell that I'm not a member of the company. I was once a nomad in the wilderness and was later recruited by the company. At present, I don't have the qualifications to be an official employee. The old task force can help me achieve this goal as soon as possible and raise my employee level quickly. When the time comes, I will be qualified to apply for genetic modification. Jiang Bamian tilted her head as if she did not hear Bai Chen's words clearly. She smiled and asked, Is she bad-mouthing me behind my back? Heh heh, we will definitely have plenty of action in the wilderness. We need a guide who is familiar with the wilderness and has interacted with many factions and settlements. Don't be fooled by her young age. She has a lot of experience. After saying that, Jiang Bamian looked at Shang Jianyao. I've read your file. I can probably guess why you applied to join the old task force. Other than that, is there any other reason? To save all of humanity, Shang Jianyao shouted. Jiang Bamian was stunned for a moment before she touched her ear. Ah, what did you say? Heh heh, there's no need to repeat yourself. Long Yuihang, why did you join us? I was assigned here. I just graduated this year and I'm not married yet, Long Yuihang said as he sobbed. With that, he reacted and repeated it loudly. Jiang Bamian blinked. Out of so many people, you are the only one who didn't get assigned a spouse. Of all the graduates, you're probably the only one assigned to the security department and to the old task force at that. Long Yuihang nodded solemnly. Jiang Bamian thought for a moment and smiled gently. People like you are generally what we call the chosen one. Long Yuihang's lips quivered as he laughed self-deprecatingly. I don't think I'm the chosen one, but the unlucky one. He spoke very softly, nor did he repeat himself. Jiang Bamian tilted her head slightly and tried to make out what he was saying, but she failed to hear him clearly. Even so, Jiang Bamian did not ask Long Yuihang to raise his voice. She smiled and said, We will be doing all kinds of training, including but not limited to shooting, combat, wilderness survival, and operating exoskeleton equipment and artificial intelligence bionic armor. If anyone performs badly and fails to meet the requirements, I will kick them out of the old task force and let them change jobs. Long Yuihang's eyes lit up, and his frustration vanished. However, Jiang Bamian deliberately did not look at him and cast her gaze at Shang Jianyao. If anyone deliberately drags us down during training and does not do their best, I will write this matter into their file. I believe all of you should be very clear about the consequences. Once a company employee had a black mark in their file, it was almost certain that they wouldn't be assigned a good job subsequently. If they accumulated 3 black marks, they would be exiled to the Ashlands. Shang Jianyao did not look at the change in Long Yuihang's expression and said seriously, "If we can't even pass training, how can we save the world?" Bai Chen, who was sitting on the long sofa, couldn't help but look at this young man again, wondering if something was wrong with his brain. Although Shang Jianyao look suited her aesthetics, she still deliberated and reminded Jiang Bamian, team leader, after we complete the training course, it's best we do a thorough evaluation of everyone's physical and mental state. In the Ashlands, it's very easy for humans to break down for various reasons and show signs of mental abnormalities. This will bring a lot of trouble, so we have to eliminate such latent dangers in advance. Good suggestion. Jiang Bamian snapped her fingers. The only problem is, can you speak louder? I almost didn't hear you clearly. Yes, team leader, Bai Chen replied loudly in her hoarse voice. Jiang Bamian nodded in satisfaction and continued speaking. In short, those who can complete all the training subjects and pass my inspection will still have a high chance of survival in the subsequent missions. For those whose abilities do not meet the requirements, I will not allow them to remain in the old task force and face dangers they cannot face. To the company, every bit of labor is precious enough. Thus, it will not easily abandon you until all your value is drained. Long Yuihang heaved a sigh of relief. He no longer felt as terrified and depressed. He wanted to respond, but he felt that the team leader's last sentence was a little strange, causing him to feel a little hurt deep down. Bai Chen frowned slightly, wondering if the team leader was like Shang Jianyao, slightly mental. How could she be so straightforward with the truth? Clap, clap, clap. Shang Jianyao clapped enthusiastically. Well said. Jiang Bamian's smile stiffened and she said, Shang Jianyao, I find your performance a little different from the typical person. Could you be unsuited for the old task force? Isn't that great? When everyone is depressed, negative, and in despair, there's still one person who keeps smiling. He's full of passion and uses all kinds of actions to entertain everyone. Shang Jianyao smiled. Jiang Bamian was slightly surprised. That's a pretty normal thing to say. I've always been normal, Shang Jianyao replied with a straight posture. Jiang Bamian tersely acknowledged it and suddenly smiled. Then, in what way can you entertain everyone? Shang Jianyao thought for a moment and said, Gold Coast Hula Dance. I'm looking forward to it, said Jiang Bamian perfunctorily. Oh right, where did you learn it from? From the entertainment department's end-of-year performance, Shang Jianyao answered frankly. I didn't see it. Jiang Bamian clapped her hands lightly. Bai Chen's heart palpitated as she listened to their conversation. She began to wonder if joining this group might be a mistake. She swept her gaze over and saw that Long Yuihang's expression was also filled with confusion and suspicion. Other than me, the most normal person in this group is actually this stupid and timid guy. Bai Chen pulled her scarf as if she wanted to cover her entire face. After chatting about the performances for last year's end-of-year performance, Jiang Bamian flipped her wrist and looked at the black electronic watch around her wrist. It's a little late. There's still training later. I'll make it short. Upon seeing that Shang Jianyao, Long Yuihang, and Bai Chen were all looking at the watch on her wrist, Jiang Bamian waved her hand and said, I used 2 soybeans and beef canned food to exchange for this from a nomad in the wilderness. He had picked it up as well, and it was already broken. Thankfully, I know a supervisor in the factory zone. I spent some contribution points and found an electronic engineer to help me fix it. Heh, there's no need to be envious. You guys have a chance too. As long as you leave the company and enter the Ashlands, you'll have a chance to scavenge and pick up trash, right, Bai Chen? I remember you were a trash hunter back then. Team leader, please don't use such unpleasant-sounding words. Bai Chen opened her mouth, only to let out a gentle sigh. Ruin hunter. Actually, I'm not really a ruin hunter. I rarely go deep into the city ruins in the wilderness. Those places are too dangerous. In the wilderness, I mostly pick up the scattered pieces of. Upon saying that, the petite lady paused for 2 seconds as though she was searching for a suitable term. However, she eventually gritted her teeth and said, "Trash. I also head to the city ruins that mostly have their dangers eliminated and are relatively close by. I look for things that the hunters don't fancy or didn't discover. Then, I'll drive to various settlements in the wilderness and exchange resources with them." Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihong nodded, expressing their comprehension of her description. In the basic textbooks they used, there was a focus on the Ashlands' general situation. One of them specifically introduced the ruin hunter occupation. This was a vocation that gradually became popular after the Old World was destroyed. It was a vocation that sought the Old World's ruins to obtain items, books, technical information, corresponding documents, and various resources to survive. The composition of ruin hunters was very complicated. There were antiquarians, historians, scientific researchers, and large faction investigators. However, most of them made a living by searching for and selling relics. A large portion of them were part-time wilderness bandits. After years of chaos, in order to exchange information and supplies and prove each other's credibility, the ruin hunters established a loose organization called the Hunters Guild. Jiang Bamian praised her. "You were loud enough this time." She then smiled and said, "Actually, there are new electronic watches produced now, but they are in limited production. They can only be seen in the First City. I wonder when I'll have the chance to visit First City." First City was both the name of a city and the name of a large faction. The former was said to be the first city built on a particular city ruined by humans after the Old World was destroyed. It was the latter's capital, and the latter was currently the most populous and influential force in the Ashlands. When she heard the name First City, Bai Chen's expression instantly became gloomy, as if she recalled some unbearable past. She didn't interrupt Jiang Bamian and only shrunk her body towards the sofa's armrest. Bam! Jiang Bamian slapped her forehead. "Look at me, I was supposed to make it short, but I ended up spouting all this nonsense. Next is the main point, compensation. Shang Jianyao Long Yuihong, you will be assigned D1 ranks. Just like the other jobs, you will receive 1,800 points every month. However, you will receive an additional meal allowance. The meal allowance is as such. You have 4 days off every month. The rest are training days. On training days, you can eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the small canteen beside us. There will be 2 special servings of meat dishes every day, a total of half a pound. Each serving will only cost 1 contribution point. You can choose to finish it in 1 meal or split it into 2 meals. On your rest days, you will receive 25 contribution points every day, which is equivalent to half a pound of raw pork. You will receive a total of 100 contribution points. In other words, during the training phase, when it doesn't include field training, you will receive 1,900 points a month. When you leave the company to train in the Ashlands, not only will your daily necessities be free, but you will also receive a fieldwork subsidy, an additional 30 points. If you are injured, all the treatment fees can be reimbursed. If you are disabled because of this, the company will provide you with free biomechanical limb transplant surgery. Jiang Bamian glanced at Long Yuihong when she said that. In the event of death, you will definitely receive a bereavement pension of 80 points a month. In short, under D7, our team is treated better than any other person of the same rank. When you complete all your training and pass the assessment, you can immediately rise to D2. The other positions might take a year or 2, perhaps even longer. Long Yuihong's heart sank at first, but he soon felt a little happy. After all, his job sounded promising. If he could survive the first few old task force operations, he might be able to reach D6. Then he could then request to leave this position. When that happened, he would most likely be the highest-ranking personnel among his peers with the highest income. As long as he did not live where the managers lived, he would be able to hold his head high, no matter where he went. As for you, Jiang Bamian looked at Bai Chen. As you are not an official employee yet, you will still receive the same treatment as before. However, you will also receive food and field allowances. When the training ends and you pass the assessment, you will become an official employee. Bai Chen's expression had already eased up, and she nodded gently to indicate that she understood. Jiang Bamian flexed the 5 fingers on her left hand. This morning's training is to identify firearms, dismantle, and load them. Didn't we learn this before? Long Yuihang blurted out. This was part of basic education. In university, there were also compulsory courses such as combat and shooting. Jiang Bamian smiled and said, "You've only learned the company's standard weapons. Next, Bai Chen will introduce you to the various weapons produced by the different factions and those from different wildernesses and ruins. You must understand that it is very easy for us to lose our weapons or be unable to gather any effective supplies when we are out on missions. When the time comes, we will need to repair whatever firearms we pick up. We will also need to use the weapon corresponding to the bullet caliber one we pick up. Every additional bit of information we grasp raises our chances of survival." "All right," she clapped her hands. "Let's go to the changing room in the small bathhouse next door and change into our uniforms. We'll then go to room 15. She then pointed at the clothes on the coffee table. In room 15 of the 647th floor, Shang Jianyao, who had changed into a gray uniform, pushed open the door and entered. Long Yuihang followed closely behind him and looked around curiously. All kinds of weapons were reflected in his eyes. Some were long, some were short, some were silvery white, and some were iron black. Some were placed on the table while some were hung up. There were all kinds of weapons as if the room was holding an expo of hot weapons. Frankly speaking, Long Yuihang had only seen the term expo in books and learned the general meaning from his teacher's explanations. He had never seen one in real life. The only event that made him feel like it was an expo was the new experimental species exhibition in the indoor ecosystem zone a few years ago. Now, he felt that the sight before him was what an expo should be like. Jiang Bamian stood by the door and sized up Shang Jianyao before nodding in approval. "You flesh out the uniform in style." The security department's uniform was well-designed and stylish. Shang Jianyao was tall and well-built. He looked thin in his clothes and had a masculine aura. He fleshed out the clothes' handsomeness and coolness. "This uniform isn't too good," Shang Jianyao replied with a frown. "Why?" Bai Chen asked in surprise. Upon hearing this, Jiang Bamian opened her mouth and muttered, "I think it's better to ignore him." At the same time, Shang Jianyao mouth opened as he answered Bai Chen's question with a smile. "There's no way to dance the Gold Coast hula dance in it." "Bai Chen, sometimes I really don't know if you're joking or if there's something wrong with your brain." Jiang Bamian laughed as she looked at Long Yuihang. "Stop daydreaming. Go over there. Class is beginning." She paused and swept her gaze from top to bottom before smiling. "You look pretty smart and much more handsome than before." Long Yuihang, who had been feeling a little down because the two ladies had been paying attention to Shang Jianyao and neglected him, straightened his back and said, "Yes, team leader." When he arrived at the long table that Jiang Bamian pointed at, Bai Chen picked up a silver-white body gun and held the black anti-slip pistol grip. This is a gun that many ruin hunters and bandits in the wilderness have a love and hate relationship with. See this? The barrel is very thick and long. It uses 11.18 bullets, so it's very powerful. It can be used to kill larger types of beasts. There are a few guns that are similar right beside it. Some are called pythons. Its recoil is very strong. Without a strong body, it's impossible to control it. Yes, all of you should have received genetic enhancement. There shouldn't be any problems. Its original form comes from the old world city ruins. This is the latest product of United Industries. The model number is 202, but it has one disadvantage. It's easier to get jammed than other types of pistols. You have to pay attention to this when using it. Bai Chen told Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang about the United 202 pistol's general information, structure, and usage experience. After teaching them about this, Bai Chen picked up a black pistol on another long table. This one uses 7.62 bullets. It's more powerful, smaller, feels good to the touch, and has high precision. It's easier to carry and maintain. It's just that it's not too friendly to those with larger hands. It's absolutely fantastic for me. The two commonly seen types in the wilderness are the Salvation Army-produced Yubei 6 and Yubei 7. One of their differences is that there's a certain problem with the former's design. Its stoppage rate is comparable to the United 202. Also, this one uses a 14.5 bullet. Its power is obvious. It comes from the ruins of Iron Mountain City, but the Orange Company has a replica. We all call it Fatty. However, it's not the best among sniper rifles. I prefer Hawk and God's Eye. Look, it's over there. The best sniper rifles are actually Gauss rifles and plasma rifles. However, there aren't any here. Unless you encounter elite teams from First City or United Industries, you won't encounter them in the wilderness. This is my favorite submachine gun, nicknamed Short Neck. Bai Chen introduced and explained each gun one by one. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang listened attentively and familiarized themselves with them by holding them from time to time. Jiang Beimian did not interrupt the lecture. When Bai Chen was thirsty, Jiang Beimian pointed at a thick steel tube on the table nearby and said, "Guess what weapon it is?" Long Yuihang looked over and read the 5 Ashlands words from the tube. Lin Nan Steel Tube Factory. "Haha," Jiang Beimian laughed. "It's actually a single-man combat rocket launcher. However, its main component comes from a seamless steel tube factory from the Salvation Army. All right, you guys continue." At 6:20 p.m., Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang, who had showered and changed into their daily clothes, took their lunch boxes and found a seat in the number 2 cafeteria on the 647th floor. The cafeteria in the security department opened at 6:10 p.m., 20 minutes earlier than the residential zone. "My whole body hurts. Team leader is too ruthless." While Long Yue sat down, he touched the bruises on his body. It hurt so much that he gritted his teeth and couldn't help but complain. They had weapons lessons in the morning and combat training in the afternoon. Jiang Beimian did not hold back at all and trained them hard. Comparatively speaking, Shang Jianyao could still last a little longer, but Long Yuihang was tragically defeated in less than 30 seconds each time. The effects of her genetic enhancement are definitely better than ours. Look, her strength, reaction speed, and coordination are crazy. She's just like a monster. Ha, you're also a monster, a little monster. Today, Long Yuihang just realized that his good friend had not even used half of his strength in previous combat classes. He actually managed to go a few rounds with such a monster. Even though he could only last for a short period of time, he still managed to throw in some blows. Shang Jianyao smiled at Long Yuihang. "You can't even defeat Bai Chen." Long Yue blushed and stammered. "She doesn't play by the rules. Besides, didn't you only defeat her a few times?" He originally thought that he could easily win against a petite lady like Bai Chen with his size and strength. Who knew that he would lose again and again? After all, he had undergone genetic enhancement while still an embryo. Not only did he have a good physique and strength, but his reaction speed, coordination, and balance were also excellent. In addition, He also had many years of combat experience. There are no rules when fighting in the wilderness, only life and death, Shang Jianyao calmly replied. That's true, her combat skills are very practical, Long Yuihang said as he looked down at his lunch box. On the potatoes dotted with white rice, the black dried preserved vegetables were spread out bit by bit. The gravy had already seeped into the rice. Above the dried preserved vegetables was a piece of meat that had more fat than lean meat, with layers and layers of alternating meat. This meat was dyed with the color of the gravy. It was thick, solid, and looked heavy. This was the special meat dish that Long Yuihang exchanged for one contribution point. He had already enjoyed a plate of steamed pork in the afternoon. It smells so good. Long Yuihang narrowed his eyes. If I didn't have to go out to the field, this job would be my dream job. Shang Jianyao glanced at him. There's still combat class tomorrow. There was no room for selection when it came to the special meat dishes. He also had steamed pork with preserved vegetables. Stop talking. Eat quietly. Long Yuihang's face fell. He realized that he was getting more and more used to roaring after spending so much time with his team leader. Shang Jianyao ignored him and buried his head to enjoy the potato braised rice and preserved vegetables steamed meat. After dinner, Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang took their lunch boxes and took the elevator back to the 495th floor's Zone C. The two of them had just entered the rec center when they saw a tall girl with good facial features and a clean temperament walking over in a simple dress. Feng Yunying, why are you looking for me? Long Yuihang forgot Shang Jianyao as he strode forward with a smile on his face. The girl was a little stunned. You just finished your meal. I'm here to return a friend's item. Long Yuihang smiled and said, I ate in the small canteen. Small canteen. Where are you assigned to? Asked Feng Yunying curiously. It could not be an ordinary department if it had a small canteen. In the entertainment department she was in, only the radio station had one. Long Yuihang realized that he had let his tongue slip and forced a smile onto his face. Security department. Feng Yunying was stunned for a moment before she said politely, then you have to be careful. As the two of them conversed, Shang Jianyao walked to the side, pulled over a stool and sat beside Chen Xianyu, the pick of the rec center. Chen Xianyu looked at the items in front of him and casually asked, how is it? Which team were you assigned to? Do you want me to get someone to take care of you? It's a secret, Shang Jianyao said concisely. Heh, Chen Xianyu turned his head away. He didn't inquire further and patted Shang Jianyao's shoulder. Be careful. At this moment, one of Chen Xianyu's employees came back from the staff cafeteria with his lunch box. Shang Jianyao looked at Chen Xianyu holding the lunch box in one hand and his chopsticks clicking rapidly in the other as he suddenly said, Grandpa Chen, you said you know everyone on this floor. Chen Xianyu answered vaguely, I don't dare to say that I know everyone, but I know at least 95% of them. Shang Jianyao was just about to weigh his words when he suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Li, whom he had seen at Zone A, Room 35 this morning, a parishioner of life ritual. Do you know her? Shang Jianyao pointed at the beautiful lady. Chen Xianyu looked up. Li Zhen, you should know her, right? You two used to be neighbors, however you were young back then so you might not remember. She's also a pitiful person. She got married and had 2 children. Then she was transferred to another job with her husband. She was infected and could no longer have children. Meanwhile, her 2 children died in an accident a few years ago. Shang Jianyao silently listened to Chen Xianyu without saying a word. After sitting in the rec center for a while, he returned to Zone B, Room 196. As usual, he lay on his bed in a half-lying and half-sitting pose and waited for the radio broadcast to begin. Before long, the familiar sweet voice echoed in every floor's residential zone. Good evening, everyone. I'm the news broadcaster Hu Yi. It's 8 p.m. now. Due to the abnormal weather this year, monsters have already begun migrating in the Ashlands above. There are traces of the monks' conclave in the wilderness near the company. The animal diarrhea of indoor ecosystem zone, Ranch 59, has been treated. The entertainment department decided to hold a staff basketball match at the rec center this week on their rest day. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. In the elevator that led to the 647th floor, Long Yuihang, who was wearing a polyester shirt, looked at his reflection on the elevator's metal wall and gestured at his chest. This high-intensity training is really useful. I think I can defeat 5 of my just-graduated self. No, 3. Furthermore, his figure had become rather good. He also let out a much stronger masculine vibe. Shang Jianyao looked at the door's crack and said, "Sai, I'm only 1.75 meters tall after genetic enhancement. I'm not handsome either. My grades are only average." Long Yuihang was speechless, unsure what kind of expression he should use in response. He took a deep breath and exhaled heavily. "Seriously, I have been eating meat every day for the past 2 months. Why didn't I grow by a centimeter?" As they spoke, the two of them walked out of the elevator and familiarly turned into room 14. They still didn't know what training was in store for them this morning, and they couldn't determine if they were going to change into the security department's uniform or wear clothes more suitable for combat. Therefore, they could only report to Jiang Bamian before heading to the changing room in the bathhouse. Jiang Bamian and Bai Chen had already arrived. At this moment, they were gathered around the brownish-red desk that belonged to the former's office and staring at something seriously. "Good morning, team leader." Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang were already used to yelling. Jiang Bamian looked up and waved. Come here, I have something to tell you." Long Yuihang glanced at Shang Jianyao and realized that even he didn't seem to know what was going on. The two of them walked over and saw a low-precision map on Jiang Bamian's brownish-red painted desk. Jiang Bamian punched the map and smiled. "Today's training program is field training." "Huh?" Long Yuihang exclaimed. He knew that field training would come sooner or later, but he never imagined that there would be no warning signs and that there would be no time for him to prepare. Shang Jianyao didn't say anything, but the smile on his face couldn't be concealed no matter what. Jiang Bamian looked around and said, "I originally planned on starting in 2 days. However, it just so happens that the higher-ups have given us a small mission. We need to go to a nomad settlement in the wilderness to deliver a water filter chip. We might as well set off today. Bai Chen, tell them our final destination and general route." Bai Chen, who was still wearing her gray scarf, held the edge of the table with one hand and wrapped a spot on the map with the other. "This is Kaifeng Town, about 300 kilometers from the company. If there are any repaired highways, there won't be any danger in the middle. We can take turns driving and reach it in a day. Unfortunately, there are no intact roads in the Black Marsh Wilderness. Perhaps there's a small section of the road, originating from the old world, that remains well preserved along the way. It just has a lot of weeds growing on it. There are certain cracks in the road, but that's just an exception." Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang knew that the Black Marsh Wilderness referred to a dangerous area outside the company. It covered a large area. The northernmost area was connected to the icy plain. The northeast area bordered the Salvation Army's territory. To the east was the White Knight's sphere of influence. If one kept going southeast, one would enter First City. As for the south, there was another stretch of wilderness and several mountain ranges. Bai Chen continued explaining, "You should be able to tell that the Great Swamp is between Kaifeng Town and us. Many places are labeled with high-risk symbols. According to my experience, these places either have no paths at all and are pure swamps, filled with mutated, terrifying monsters, or a monster horde settlement. Otherwise, they are the old world's ruins. the kind that spells no return. If we take away the heavily polluted areas, there aren't many routes we can choose. Furthermore, we have to eliminate the ones that the company often uses due to the installation of 2 outposts. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve the goal of wilderness training. After combining the above conditions and the Great Swamp's geographical situation, I've planned 2 routes. They both require us to traverse the Great Swamp back and forth. The travel time for both routes is about the same. It will take a week or even 2 weeks for us to reach Kaifeng Town. The exact amount of time will still depend on the weather. Which route do you prefer? Or do you want to circle the Great Swamp from the periphery? That will take longer and the danger level might not be much lower. Oh, I don't know much about the Great Swamp. I've never been to many places. You can give me other suggestions. Before Jiang Bamian could speak, Shang Jianyao took a step forward and pointed at one of the paths. This one is good. Why? Bai Chen subconsciously asked. Then she deeply regretted asking. The lines are smooth and the shape is beautiful. Shang Jianyao had a sincere expression. Bai Chen turned to look at her team leader, hoping that she could do her justice. Jiang Bamian stroked her chin and said, I agree with Shang Jianyao's choice. Since there's no qualitative difference between the 2 paths, I'll definitely choose the better-looking one. It's decided then. After saying that, she looked at Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang and pointed at her electronic watch. You have 15 minutes to prepare. Just 15 minutes, Long Yuihang's face scrunched up. 14 minutes 55 seconds. Jiang Bamian looked at her electronic watch and replied without raising her head. Long Yuihang immediately turned around and chased after Shang Jianyao's back. Hey, wait for me. The 2 of them quickly entered the nearby bathhouse's changing room and opened their lockers. As they were covered in sweat from training every day, they had placed many clothes here so that it was easier to change. Within the company, due to the lack of sunlight and the cold temperatures at night, the employees were unable to dry their clothes. They were all taken away by the training safeguard department for washing and drying before sending them back. Small personal items could be hung above their sinks or have a basin placed below to collect the water droplets. Shang Jianyao took out a standard security department camouflage backpack. He unzipped it and stuffed one of the uniforms inside. He then placed the yellowish soap he had been issued for combined washing of hair and body into a small plastic bag and threw it into his backpack. After putting away his toothpaste, toothbrush, personal items, and other miscellaneous items, Shang Jianyao quickly took off his clothes and threw them into the locker. While wearing only a pair of underpants, Shang Jianyao immediately took out the one remaining gray uniform and quickly put it on. After bending down to fasten the shoelaces of his leather boots, Shang Jianyao straightened his body, walked to the half-body mirror, and straightened his top. In the mirror, his eyebrows were straight, and his brown eyes were bright. His black hair was neat, and his face was deeply contoured and stiff. Coupled with the well-designed security department uniform that helped him exude a soldier's bearing, Shang Jianyao looked sunny and strong. While looking at his reflection, Shang Jianyao slowly took out a name tag from his pocket and wore it on his left chest. The name tag was red, and 2 golden Ashlands words were embossed on its surface: Pangu Biology. After leaving the changing room, Shang Jianyao waited for 2 minutes. When Long Yuihang was done, they returned to room 14. Long Yuihang glanced at Shang Jianyao, only to take a second glance. Finally, he couldn't help but say, "Don't you think there's anything different about me?" Shang Jianyao glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Long Yuihang raised his arm and said, "I'm not nervous. Haven't you realized that I'm not nervous at all? In the past, I would definitely be scared and pessimistic, but I think I can handle it now since it's just field training. The past 2 months of training have really been useful." Shang Jianyao slowed down and sized Long Yuihang up. Suddenly, he smiled. Your legs are shaking. Long Yuihang's expression collapsed. Shang Jianyao ignored him and walked towards room 14. Long Yuihang snapped back to reality and looked down at his legs. I'm not shaking. I'm not shaking. With this interlude, he found that he didn't feel nervous at all. The two of them quickly returned to room 14. Jiang Bamian's gaze swept past and landed on Shang Jianyao left chest. She raised her eyebrows and said, "There's no need to wear a name tag. It's not a company-level operation. Furthermore, in a situation where there are very few people, name tags only bring danger. The bandits and nomads in the Ashlands don't care if we are from a large faction. Sometimes, if they can't plunder anything, it might mean death for them that very day. Thus, it's meaningless for them to consider the serious consequences of attacking a large faction's member." Shang Jianyao nodded gently and said loudly, "It gives a sense of ritual." Jiang Bamian rubbed her temples. "Take it off after we leave the company. Let's set off now." Shang Jianyao, Bai Chen, and Long Yuihang carried the same type of camouflage bags and followed her to the elevator area. After entering the elevator, Jiang Bamian took out her electronic card and swiped it. She pressed the number 650. In just a few seconds, the elevator finished its ascent and opened the door to the concourse and hall. The Pangu Biology underground building's 650th floor was the floor closest to the surface. There were almost no signs of people moving freely here. There were only silver-white metal walls, an aisle separated by heavy doors, and employees from the security department holding weapons. Jiang Bamian swiped her electronic card again and again, opening the heavy metal doors one after another. She led Shang Jianyao and the others through a long aisle and arrived at the other side of the 650th floor. During this process, several doors would scan the cardholder's iris and body to determine that they weren't an imposter. For the final door, one was even required to input a password. At the end of the corridor was a row of elevators. Jiang Bamian randomly chose an elevator and swiped her card before pressing the metal button for surface. The elevator slowly went up. In front of Shang Jianyao, Long Yuihang, and the others was a wide square with a metal dome and steel frame. Jiang Bamian smiled and introduced them to the place, the parking lot. Not only were there all kinds of cars parked here, but there were also tanks and missile vehicles. They were neatly arranged in rows with no end in sight. This deeply shocked Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang. Jiang Bamian quickly found the car assigned to her, a grayish-green four-seater Jeep with high ground clearance and large wheels. It looked very imposing. Jiang Bamian opened the trunk and pointed to the left. "This is the weapon for this field training session. It's the company's standard 9 pistol. Its name is Ice Moss. It's a replica of First City's Red River. Such rounds are the most common and easiest to resupply." The Ice Moss pistol was silvery white in color, and its handle had an anti-slip pattern. Jiang Bamian continued speaking. "Everyone will receive one. Also, everyone will receive one United 202. These two are assault rifles that you know about, the company's standard Berserker. They use 5.56 rounds. This is an Orange Company assault rifle. It can be used as a sniper rifle if it's equipped with a scope. This is a grenade launcher, nicknamed Tyrant. These are all the weapons. The rounds are also here. Equip yourself with the pistols and carry a few cartridges on yourself." Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang were used to all kinds of weapons from their recent training and could not be more familiar with them. They calmly picked up an Ice Moss and United 202 each and hung them on their belts. Jiang Bamian pointed at the cardboard box on the right. "Military canned food, energy bars, and compressed biscuits. These are our supplies. Heh heh, they definitely won't be able to last us until we reach Kaifeng Town. The rest will need to be acquired in the wilderness. This is part of our training." "Yes, team leader. Bai Chen, Shang Jianyao, and the others were not surprised at all. "All right, get in the car." Jiang Beimian waved her hand valiantly. As Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang did not know how to drive yet, the two ladies sat in the front row and prepared to take turns driving. They planned on letting the two men learn how to drive in a more open area. Amidst a simulated sound, Jiang Beimian drove the four-seater Jeep, allowing it to pass through multiple checkpoints and segregation gates in the parking lot. After a while, Jiang Beimian pointed ahead with her chin. "That's the last door." It was a two-pane silver-white door. Along the way, nearly 20 security department employees guarded it. After a last round of inspection, Jiang Beimian drove the Jeep and rushed towards the metal door. At this moment, Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang couldn't help but tense up and hold their breaths. This was the first time they were going to the surface since they were born. As the Jeep approached, the silver door opened backward bit by bit. Golden rays of light suddenly shone in. It was not as white as the solar lamps or as yellow as the light from candles. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang shrunk their bodies at the same time and raised their right hands to cover their eyes. The light was a little blinding. It was not until the Jeep completely drove past the silver-white door that Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang adapted to the light outside. They lowered their right arms, widened their eyes, and looked out the window. After getting over the initial, indescribable horror, they saw a clear blue sky dotted with white clouds of different shapes, a flock of birds that constantly changed formations, and a mountain wall that shimmered with a faint golden glow under the sun. "Sun, sun!" Long Yuihang shouted at the huge orange-yellow fireball in the sky. He fixed his gaze on it. Even though his eyes stung and tears fell, he couldn't bear to look away. "Don't look into the sun in such a state. It hurts your eyes. If you really want to look at it here." Jiang Beimian drove as she dug out a certain item from the armrest compartment and handed it to Long Yuihang. Long Yuihang, who was leaning against the glass window, turned around and saw a pair of black-tinted glasses. Sunglasses. He recalled the knowledge he had learned and found the corresponding name for it. At this moment, Shang Jianyao turned around and said, "If you don't want to wear it, I will." Long Yuihang looked over and saw that Shang Jianyao eyes were red, as if tears would fall at any moment. "Haha, you're also staring at the sun." Long Yuihang couldn't help but laugh. The next second, he saw Shang Jianyao snatch the sunglasses away and put them on the bridge of his nose. "Hey!" Long Yuihang didn't know whether to be angry or to reflect on his actions. "There's one more here." Just as Long Yuihang was about to pounce on Shang Jianyao, Bai Chen, who was in the passenger seat, handed him another pair of sunglasses. This pair of sunglasses was more exquisite than Jiang Beimian's. They were like two hearts that were strung together. The color of the lenses was not pure black but had a hint of red instead. "Don't break it. I spent a lot of money to exchange for it back then," Bai Chen reminded him. "Thank you." Long Yuihang sincerely thanked her and put on the sunglasses. With this equipment, he could finally observe the sun carefully and compare its differences with the pictures he had seen on projector slides. "This is the sun." Long Yuihang sighed after an unknown period of time. He took off his sunglasses and returned them to Bai Chen. Shang Jianyao also retracted his gaze and thoughtfully placed Jiang Beimian's sunglasses back into the armrest compartment. "Penny for your thoughts." Long Yuihang glanced at his good friend. Shang Jianyao replied solemnly, "I'm wondering where I can get sunglasses." The people in the underground building didn't need such an object at all. Only a few project teams used it. Therefore, it had never appeared in the supplies allocation market or the small bazaar on the 495th floor's rec center. Jiang Beimian, who was driving, exhaled. "I knew you weren't paying attention." Bai Chen smiled and said, "When we pass by the nomad settlements in the wilderness, We can go in and take a look. Perhaps a piece of compressed biscuit can be exchanged for a pair of good sunglasses." "That's how I got mine," Jiang Bamian echoed. "Why did you use so many things to exchange for yours?" "I exchanged it from a female ruin hunter. Back then, she found it beautiful and wanted to use it herself. She didn't lack supplies." Bai Chen recalled the situation back then. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang did not listen carefully. They leaned against their respective windows and stared at the scene outside. Be it the large trees on either side or the brown squirrels that occasionally ran past, they watched everything with relish as they exclaimed in amazement. After an unknown period of time, Long Yuihang sat up and sighed with emotion. "This is different from the Ashlands environment I imagined." "What did you imagine it to be?" Jiang Bamian casually asked as she made the jeep jump on the bumpy road. Long Yuihang tried his best to find an adjective. It's. Shang Jianyao turned his head and helped him with the description. "Dark, cold, damp, and depressing. A sky covered in dust and dark clouds that sunlight can't penetrate. Everything is gray." That's right. Long Yuihang agreed with the description completely. Their textbooks did not describe the Ashlands in detail. They only talked about the conditions, pollution, disease, and famine. This naturally made them form a terrible impression of the Ashlands environment. As for the employees who had been to the surface, they could not speak much due to confidentiality regulations. Even if they occasionally mentioned that the weather was sunny and the environment was good, the listening crowd would subconsciously ignore them. Jiang Bamian held the steering wheel with her elbows and looked ahead. She chuckled and said, "Maybe it was like that when the old world was first destroyed, but it quickly improved. Only some parts of it are still in such a state." Bai Chen added, "That also means danger. It means pollution, disease, and abnormalities." "Is that so?" Long Yuihang pushed his face against the window again and admired the beautiful scenery of the mountains and forests bathed in the sunlight. Shang Jianyao was the same. Jiang Bamian saw them through the rearview mirror and smiled to herself before pressing a certain button. With a beep, the glass windows on the 4-car doors suddenly retracted. Long Yuihang jumped in fright and straightened his body. You can even retract it like that. I want you to breathe the air outside." Jiang Bamian pretended like she had not just pulled a prank. Shang Jianyao posture did not change at all, as if he enjoyed the feeling of the glass window sliding past his face. He looked rather comical. He then narrowed his eyes and took a deep breath. "How is it?" Jiang Bamian asked with a smile. Shang Jianyao looked outside in all seriousness. "It smells like fresh shit." Jiang Bamian admitted that Shang Jianyao had a sharp sense of smell, but she didn't want to agree with him. Bai Chen, who had been watching Jiang Bamian roll down the car window, interrupted thoughtfully, "Team leader, when were you born?" "Year 23 of the new calendar." "Why?" Jiang Bamian casually replied. "You're 3 years younger than me." Bai Chen was slightly shocked. Long Yuihang was even more surprised. "Team leader, you're only 2 years older than us. You're already a D6. This is the benefit of working in the security department. It may be dangerous, but promotions happen really fast. After all, your superior, such as me, might die at any moment," Jiang Bamian joked. She paused and casually added, "Besides, I've previously made some contributions. I forgot to remind you that it's important to observe the color of the air. You have to wear a gas mask in advance sometimes." In the next half hour, the jeep stumbled through the forest. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang remained like children, watching the scenery outside attentively. They were curious about everything. Upon seeing the soil in front of them gradually turning black and the trees around him starting to thin out, making the road less rugged, Long Yuihang suddenly frowned and said, "I keep having the feeling that the environment outside isn't right. There's something missing." Shang Jianyao sat up straight and spoke in a deep but not low voice. There's no one. Nobody. Yes. Long Yuihang slapped his thigh and said, yeah, apart from a few outposts along the way, there are no humans at all. The people at the outpost were undoubtedly all employees of the company. The people nearby have either been recruited by the company, wandered to another place that has food, or, Jiang Beimian changed the topic. When we pass the outpost ahead and truly enter the Black Marsh wilderness, we will have a chance of encountering humans. Bai Chen didn't turn around and added in a low voice, but that might not be what you want. Jiang Beimian tilted her head and asked, what did you say? Team leader, focus on driving. Bai Chen restrained her emotions and shouted with a smile. Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang fell silent. From time to time, they would look out the window at the increasingly open area. After an unknown period of time, Long Yuihang suddenly asked, Team leader, I haven't told my family that I'm going out for field training and that I won't be returning home soon. What should I do? The higher-ups will send someone to inform them. Jiang Beimian looked at the road ahead and gently pulled the steering wheel. Long Yuihang shut his mouth. There was another long silence in the jeep. After they passed by Pangu Biology's border sentry, the terrain ahead became increasingly flat. The soil here was grayish-black and relatively soft. On the soil were clearly all kinds of intersecting marks. Some belonged to wheels, some came from animals, and some came from humans. The trees around the road were sparser, allowing people to see the black swamp in the distance. These trees' trunks were black in color, and their leaves were dark green. Some of them were very tall, at least 20 to 30 meters tall. Some were very short, only about the height of a person. The thing they had in common was their warped and grotesque angles. They looked like dead monsters that appeared dark even under the sun. We don't have to be too careful at the edge of the swamp. Once we venture deeper, we have to slow down and pay attention to whether the road ahead has been swallowed by the swamp. If we really drive into a swamp, we have to abandon the car and retreat. Bai Chen took the opportunity to lecture the two men. Team leader, there's a clean water source over there. Jiang Beimian nodded. All right, let's take a rest over there and get some of our water supplies replenished. Shang Jianyao, Long Yuihang, you guys will drive while the terrain is open and not too dangerous. I hope you can finish learning by today. She turned the wheel and let the jeep drive into a sparse forest area in the wilderness. An underground river burrowed out of the surface here, flowing for a few hundred meters before returning underground. Jiang Beimian walked to the riverside with a solar charger board and a thermal kettle that had a large capacity. She said to Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang, there's usually no problem with such flowing underground water, but we still have to observe two things. First, we have to determine whether there are any clear abnormalities in the plants nearby. Second, we have to see if the creatures in the water appear strange compared to their own kind. Then, if the conditions permit, boil the water before filling up the water skins. If not, put in bio-cleansing capsules. After observing for a while, Jiang Beimian squatted by the river and filled the kettle with water. She then put the thermal kettle on the already charged solar charger and plugged it in. During this process, she took out a milky white plastic bottle, poured out a white capsule the size of a fingernail, and threw it into the water. This was a bio-cleansing capsule, unique to Pangu biology. Long Yuihang excitedly watched from the side as if he wanted to try it himself. For him, who needed to go to the supplies allocation market every day to get hot water, this was relatively new. He had quite a big family, and a child's energy quota was limited. A kettle for hot water was not cheap either. Therefore, he could only take a thermos and go to the hot water room in the supplies allocation market to get water. After Jiang Beimian was done, she stood up and glanced at Long Yuihang before she jokingly scolded him. At times like these, What you should do is draw your ice moss to prevent any creatures from attacking us or snatching our supplies. There's no need to mention Bai Chen. She's extremely experienced. Look, Shang Jianyao is also paying attention to his surroundings. After drawing his ice moss pistol, Shang Jianyao, who was looking at the source of the river, suddenly said, "Team leader, there's a figure darting over there." Jiang Bamian turned around and looked over. At the same time, she quickly pulled out the ice moss gun that used 9 rounds. Jiang Bamian observed for a while before asking, "Did you see what that figure looked like?" While staying on guard, Shang Jianyao replied, "His clothes are tattered, but he wears them thick like a groundhog." Jiang Bamian was not nervous and blurted out in surprise, "How do you know what a groundhog is?" If she didn't remember wrong, it was Shang Jianyao first trip out of the company to the surface. The only place where groundhogs would appear in the company was the research zone, which didn't match Shang Jianyao recently graduated status. The only reason she could think of was that there was a picture of a groundhog in the textbooks. Shang Jianyao had made a judgment based on this, but it was very difficult for people who had never seen the real thing to make such a connection. Shang Jianyao pointed across the river with the unarmed hand. "There's one over there. It's very similar to the pictures in textbooks." Jiang Bamian traced Shang Jianyao's finger and saw a highly nervous groundhog. The groundhog yelped and burrowed back into the hole. Jiang Bamian held it in for a long time before giving her evaluation. "You have sharp observation skills." Bai Chen looked up at the sky. "He's dressed so thickly during this season and at this hour. Furthermore, he's alone. He must be a nomad in the wilderness. There's no need to worry too much. We have the number and weapon advantage. He won't dare come close. The only problem is that he might be related to some bandits and bring us some trouble. However, we won't stay here for long. We'll leave soon." Jiang Bamian retracted her gaze and smiled at Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang. "If there really are bandits, it's a perfect opportunity for the two of you to train." Long Yuihang's heart palpitated. "Team leader, aren't you worried that the bandits will have more people and more firepower?" Jiang Bamian chuckled. "This place isn't too far from the company. The security department often sends teams over for training and drills. If bandits with superior numbers and firepower really were here, they would have long been eliminated. Besides, many bandits in the Ashlands might be different from what you imagine. They might be closer to the state of tramps hugging each other for warmth in order to survive. They might not have too many guns or people because they won't be able to gather sufficient supplies. Sometimes, the thin and weak ones in a band of bandits are the food reserves for others. Of course, those famous bandits are not easy to deal with. They have all found a way to ensure their extended survival." Food reserves. Long Yuihang was inexplicably terrified when he heard that. "Team leader, how can you describe such a cruel thing in such a calm tone? When you spend too much time in the Ashlands and see more, you'll get used to it." Jiang Bamian looked down at the thermal kettle on the solar charger. Shang Jianyao remained vigilant of his surroundings, but this did not stop him from asking a question and gaining knowledge. "Why are the people in the settlements called wilderness nomads? That person just now was a real nomad of the wilderness." Bai Chen pulled the scarf around her neck and spoke with a slightly solemn expression. "Because settlements are never stable. The change in water source, the quality of land, the weather, and the migration of monsters all affect a place's suitability as a settlement. Once the environment changes, people will have to wander around again in search of a new settlement. Also, of all the factors, the one that has the greatest influence on them and makes them migrate more frequently is actually whether large factions have discovered them." "Why?" Long Yuihang asked curiously. Bai Chen glanced at him. "In the Ashlands, the most notorious bandits are not the largest ones, but the slave captors from the first city. They often conquer settlements and capture people back to serve as slaves. In First City's occupied mine and inside the building factories, countless slaves have turned to corpses. Jiang Bamian nodded and added, "Some bandits will do the same, especially those who own mines. If it weren't for the slave captors in First City that capture the bandits, I believe the most active industry in the Ashlands right now would be the slave trade." Bai Chen seemed to recall something and changed the topic. In addition, the production of many settlements is unable to provide for all the residents. They have to leave the settlements frequently and go into the wilderness to search for fruits, hunt beasts, and pick up all kinds of items to exchange for what they need. In that sense, they are still wilderness nomads. Long Yuihang thought of himself as he listened. Although he could only eat meat once a week for years and often woke up in the middle of the night because of his hunger, it was not a problem for him to have a basic meal. Compared to the nomads in the wilderness, he felt like he lived in heaven. "How pitiful," Long Yuihang sighed. Bai Chen glanced at him. "It's indeed pitiful, but it's best not to be too soft-hearted when you encounter nomads in the wilderness. The only difference between bandits and them is the degree of their hunger, how good your weapon is, or how sufficiently prepared you are. When I roamed the wilderness, I was often attacked. I also often attacked others. In the eyes of the wilderness nomads, there are no good or bad people. There is only life and death." She did not speak too loudly, so it took Jiang Bamian a great deal of effort to barely hear her. The Pangu Biology D6 employee with a ponytail shook her head. "You can't be so sure. I've encountered many wilderness nomads who know how to be grateful and are willing to respond with kindness." "For example," asked Shang Jianyao. Jiang Bamian smiled brightly. "For example, Bai Chen." Bai Chen fell silent for a long time before saying, "Team leader, the water is boiling." Jiang Bamian nodded and said to Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang, "Go get all 4 waterskins from the car." After replenishing their water supplies, Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang started learning how to drive the jeep. As the road was wide and there were no other cars, as well as zero need to park the vehicle in a fixed area, they mastered driving almost effortlessly. This was in part due to them being from the new generation that had been genetically enhanced. Their concentration, reaction speed, and coordination of their hands and feet were all considered excellent. It felt like I was flying. Long Yuihang reluctantly let Bai Chen take the driver's seat. Shang Jianyao nodded in agreement. If not for the fact that the roads were relatively soft and that the swamp was getting closer and closer, making the situation complicated, he could have driven the vehicle into the air. "It's getting dark, be careful." After Long Yuihang sat back in the backseat, Bai Chen stepped on the accelerator and said, "There's an abandoned building complex ahead. It's said to be a rest stop beside an old-world highway. We'll camp there for the night." Jiang Bamian took the opportunity to teach Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang. "The reason we don't continue on our way after dark isn't that there might be more dangerous creatures appearing at night. Basically, we will encounter them during the day as well. The main reason is that there isn't enough light after dark, greatly reducing the area we can see clearly. This will make it difficult for us to discover the potholes and swamps ahead of time. Similarly, it will be very fatal if we can't sense the approach of dangerous creatures in advance. You should remember that most beasts and monsters aren't too difficult for humans, with sufficient firepower, to deal with as long as we can discover them in advance. Our most dangerous enemies are mostly our own kind and diseases." Bai Chen, who was driving, interrupted Jiang Bamian. "I've encountered mutated mosquitoes before. Each of them was the size of a finger, and their numbers were incalculable. When they gathered together, they were like a large black cloud that swamped from the horizon, blocking out all the sunlight. Their bites released a terrifying poison that numbed the bodies of humans and animals and slowed their thinking. Back then, dozens of nomads were swarmed by them and had all their blood drained. Whether it was pistols, rifles, machine guns, or rocket launchers, they couldn't deal much damage to them. Fortunately, we picked up a few flamethrowers that were still usable. With them, a third of us survived. Long Yuihang's scalp tingled when he heard this, and his fear of the wilderness increased. Shang Jianyao eyes flickered, as if he was thinking of a way to deal with such a monster. Jiang Bamian nodded slightly and said, "In such a situation, the company's herbicide rounds are a good choice." As the four of them conversed, the jeep drove to a small ruin. Most of the buildings that did not exceed the third floor had collapsed. Their surfaces were covered with creepers, and the original walls were virtually invisible. It was as though a green surge had drowned them. In front of these buildings was a large open space with a pile of rocks of varying sizes. The ground had many cracks, and clumps of plants creeped out of them. After Bai Chen stopped the car, she scanned the area and said, "There are no new traces of human activity. We'll rest here for the night. There's a clean water source nearby." Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang alighted from the car one after another. They followed Jiang Bamian's instructions to gather wood and set up a bonfire. They also used charging boards that had been under the sun for the entire day to recharge the jeep's high-performance batteries. Unless one knew the wilderness very well and knew which settlements or corresponding ruins could provide gasoline, fuel cars could only move about in their own sphere of influence, unless one brought along a sufficient number of filled gas barrels. Pangu biology was rather lacking in oil resources. They did not prepare tents because they could sleep in the jeep. Two of them would keep watch, and the other two would rest before taking turns. The fire soon illuminated the gradually darkening environment. Jiang Bamian took out a few cans of military food and began to heat them. Shang Jianyao, who had eaten an energy bar, carried the company's standard assault rifle, nicknamed Berserker, and patrolled the surroundings to prevent any accidents. He suddenly felt something and looked up at the collapsed building complex that had been swallowed by the creeper vines. At the top of the building's edge, a black figure flashed past before it disappeared behind an obstacle. Shang Jianyao was not afraid. He spoke to Jiang Bamian, Bai Chen, and Long Yuihang as if nothing had happened. "Hurry up and eat." "Huh?" Long Yuihang was confused. Shang Jianyao calmly said, "It seems like something is approaching." Long Yuihang was shocked. He instinctively grabbed the Berserker assault rifle beside him and jumped up. While he hesitated about throwing away the lunch box in his other hand, Jiang Bamian looked around calmly. "There's nothing." She then smiled at Long Yuihang. "Don't be nervous. It still hasn't come close, right? Sit down, sit down. We can eat when the canned food is heated up." As she spoke, she patted the grenade launcher, nicknamed Tyrant, beside her. On the other side of the bonfire, Bai Chen carefully observed their surroundings for a while before returning her attention to the food. "But team leader, there's something approaching us. Aren't you worried that we might be ambushed?" Long Yuihang couldn't understand Jiang Bamian's attitude. Jiang Bamian stared at the canned food that had been opened a long time ago and said, "Isn't Shang Jianyao on guard against such a situation? If that thing doesn't come close, will we not eat and wait here for it? If we keep waiting until we are really starving and exhausted, that will only affect our performance." She gradually smiled. "In short, as long as the sky hasn't collapsed, it shouldn't stop us from filling our stomachs." Long Yuihang sat down doubtfully. From time to time, he would look up at Shang Jianyao, afraid that he would make a mistake and not discover any enemies that had entered a dangerous range. The liquid in the can melted as the flames flickered, and an indescribable fragrance constantly spread out. This was the scent of pork, soybeans, salt, and spices mixed together in a complicated process. It made everyone present feel like a hand had stretched out from their stomachs and uncontrollably drilled through their throats before arriving at their mouths. "It's done," Jiang Bamian smiled sincerely. At that moment, from the top of the collapsed building, where green vines entangled, A black figure pounced over and went straight for Long Yuihang, who was by the bonfire. As the flames flickered, Shang Jianyao and the rest finally saw the black figure's appearance clearly. A female human. Her clothes were tattered, revealing her dirty skin that had thick hair growing. Her greasy hair hung down messily, congealed into many locks. Her nails were long and sharp as they shimmered with a cold light. Her eyes were bloodshot and turbid, like those of a wild beast's. Her body was arched, and she was extremely fast. She resembled an ape that swung over with a vine. Bang! Shang Jianyao had just raised the assault rifle in his hand when he heard a gunshot. Bam! The black shadow fell to the ground heavily. Her face was facing upwards, and there was an exaggerated, grotesque, bloody hole in her left chest that reached her shoulder. There was nothing intact in the middle. After twitching twice, the female human lost her life. Jiang Bamian retracted her United 202 and calmly said, "A heartless." Heartless? Long Yuihang curiously looked at the corpse in surprise. This was a term that no one could skip learning when studying the Ashlands history. It was also something described in great detail in Pangu biology's textbooks. Heartless were also known as lost hearts. The term referred to humans who had heartless disease. This disease was also known as the bestial transformation disease or atavism disease. It meant that humans who had contracted the disease would lose all their rationality, thoughts, and feelings, turning into creatures that were no different from beasts. All that remained were their instinct to hunt, their survival instincts, and the instinct to use simple tools. They were unable to communicate with each other and would take the initiative to attack normal humans, treating them as prey. The earliest case of the heartless disease appeared when the old world was destroyed. In a short period of time, a large number of humans in each city became heartless, and many more people, who were caught off guard, died at the heartless hands. As the heartless needed to eat to survive, they were like real beasts. Therefore, after humanity's law and order collapsed, ushering in a great famine, they quickly lost a large portion of their city's food reserves. Less than 1% of the original population remained. According to the observations of many historians in the Ashlands, in addition to hunting humans, the heartless also preyed on beasts, excavated roots, harvested fruits, and captured mutated and unmutated mice to eat. When they were most hungry, they would attack each other. Such a diet and living environment made it very rare for heartless to live past the age of 30. However, they had the instinct to reproduce and had a large number of descendants. Meanwhile, the heartless from subsequent generations had a little more intelligence and were equipped with better hunting abilities. Logically speaking, after humans restored a level of law and order and came into control of sufficient firepower, it shouldn't have been too difficult to deal with the heartless, who were closer to beasts, but that wasn't the case in reality. On the one hand, although the heartless didn't know how to dismantle and maintain weapons, they knew how to use them. It was as if they had this instinct. This instinct became stronger with every generation of heartless. Furthermore, the heartless had the intrinsic qualities of humans. They could suffer corruption and mutate. This resulted in the painful deaths of a large number of heartless, as well as the creation of a group of top hunters. Of course, no matter how good the heartless were at using weapons, they did not know how to conduct scientific research, nor did they know how to organize themselves to produce and maintain them. Even if they became top hunters, they could not cause too much trouble in the face of the firepower-rich human armies. After all, humans had the technology to induce mutation and genetic modification. Even if they were not mature and had a low chance of success, they could still crush the heartless, who depended on luck for food. On the other hand, humans had never been able to figure out the heartless disease's pathology and spreading nature. They didn't know how to prevent contracting such a disease. This resulted in soldiers not being willing to go to areas where the heartless gathered, fearing that they would be infected. Therefore, after the large factions eliminated the heartless around them. They were unwilling to deal with the ones residing in the old world's ruins. Until today, heartless remained a shadow that loomed over humans. This was because a person who lived perfectly fine in a settlement might lose their rationale and intelligence after a nap and become a beast, even if they had never directly come into contact with a heartless. Their family and friends would be completely fine with no signs of infection at all. This was the conclusion the humans came to after prolonged isolation. Several years ago, a large faction's high-ranking member, who was extremely afraid of the heartless disease, slept in a quarantine room. People had to wear a gas mask and a chem suit when they entered. Likewise, he wore the same when out. Yet, he still became a heartless one day. Fortunately, the average rate of a heartless disease outbreak wasn't too high since the beginning of the new calendar. Otherwise, humanity might have already collapsed. The corpse's tragic state made Long Yuihang, who was looking at a corpse for the first time, feel a lump in his throat. He subconsciously turned his head away and didn't dare look again. Looks like she's a first generation. Bai Chen recalled what had happened and made her judgment. From the tattered state of her clothes, it hasn't been more than a year since her illness acted up. Jiang Beimian looked at Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang. Do you need me to go through heartless knowledge with you again? Shang Jianyao did not answer and suddenly said, This isn't the figure I saw just now. The figure I saw was a little shorter. Jiang Beimian nodded slightly and said, The two of you, search the corpse and see if there are any valuable items. Then, carry the corpse outside and bury it. Don't go beyond the area that's illuminated by the fire. She thought for a moment, walked to the jeep, took out 4 black objects and threw one to Shang Jianyao and Long Yuihang each. Walkie-talkies. Effective range is 2 kilometers. It will have further range in open areas. Inform me immediately if anything happens. I believe you guys know how to use it, right? I know how to repair it. Shang Jianyao didn't answer her question. He and Long Yuihang graduated from the university's electronics department. Long Yuihang latched the walkie-talkie on and walked hesitantly to the heartless corpse. The smell of blood, mixed with an indescribable stench, rose, almost causing Long Yuihang, who was cowering and not daring to look at the corpse, to vomit. Shang Jianyao walked over and took the initiative to search the area. Then, he stood at the head of the corpse, which was close to where the gun wound was. Shall I do the honors? He asked Long Yuihang. Long Yuihang wanted to say that it wasn't nice for Shang Jianyao to carry the corpse on his back. I mean, do you need me to do the honors of carrying you? Shang Jianyao explained expressionlessly. Long Yuihang laughed dryly. No, it's fine. He bent down and grabbed the corpse's feet. Shang Jianyao placed his arms under the heartless's armpit. Blood dripped down bit by bit. The two of them carried the corpse out of the clearing and dug a pit at the edge of the bonfire's illumination range to bury the corpse. This affected Long Yuihang's appetite, making him eat only 1 compressed biscuit and half a can of soybean pork. The sky became darker and darker. Jiang Beimian was just about to schedule their night shifts when a roar suddenly sounded from the distance. Howl! This roar echoed through the clouds, sounding hoarse and desolate like a nightmare at night. As soon as the roar ended, howling sounds echoed endlessly from different parts of the swamp. Long Yuihang felt a little apprehensive and couldn't help but ask, Is that a wolf pack? Have you seen a wolf pack scattered across different areas? Jiang Beimian chuckled. Is it common for wild beasts to howl all over such a large swamp? Long Yuihang asked nervously. Jiang Beimian shook her head with a smile. Not at all. What should we do? Long Yuihang blurted out a question. Jiang Beimian looked at him in amusement. This is indeed a little abnormal, indicating that something might have happened deep in the swamp. However, from the general area and direction, it doesn't intersect our route or destination in any way. Therefore, ignore it. Ignore it. Long Yuihang looked at Shang Jianyao beside him and realized that he wasn't afraid at all. Upon hearing this, Bai Chen, who was in charge of guarding the surroundings, calmly said, "An abnormality or accident happens every few days in the Black Marsh wilderness. How can we manage all of that? In such a large wilderness, the chances of these matters affecting you are very, very low." "But what if it affects us?" Long Yuihang asked. Shang Jianyao stared at the bonfire and said, "That only means your name sucks." Long Yuihang gritted his teeth and nodded. "That's true. If I'm unlucky, I won't be able to escape it no matter what. If I'm lucky, I won't encounter it at all." Zhang Bamian could not understand their conversation and was embarrassed to ask. She could only smile. "We are far from the area where the roar originated, so we don't know the exact situation. Therefore, we can't make any preparations in advance. Under the premise that we don't retreat to the company, the only choice is to circle around that place and go further away. And that's how our route is supposed to be." "This sounds much more reasonable than how you previously put it." Long Yuihang thought for a moment and realized that two expressions with the same meaning had different effects. Zhang Bamian smiled. "Therefore, you have to learn how to capture the essence of things. In this regard, Shang Jianyao is much better than you. Look, he has never been nervous." Shang Jianyao nodded slightly and said, "I'm just considering whether I should participate." Zhang Bamian, Long Yuihang, and Bai Chen wore looks of confusion. Shang Jianyao opened his mouth and let out a sound. Howl. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.